So this week, we are feeling topical, but more so than that, we're happy to have a guest on the show with us, and it is a friend of Laura's from school.
I'm James McMaster, Muhlenberg class 2012.
Love it.
I'm the same class. I transferred in second year, sophomore year, and we actually had acting 1 together.
We did.
I didn't really know James until, should we say senior year? I mean, I knew of you, and we chatted on occasion, but I would say
like progressively closer over
yeah,
time.
for sure. He helped form a space for some Muhlenberg alumni, the school where we went. A place where we can kind of keep dialogues and discussions going on different critical topics, so all matters of different types of social justice and things like that. So anyway, from that work especially, and just seeing how James, carries out his life, I knew that he would be a good person for it.
Can you kind of summarize your journey from Muhlenberg to UT Austin to NYU?
So, our theater faculty were super rad, super smart folks, and so that was something that turned me, and I think you would probably say this too, into like an actor who like thinks and has a point of view. And I was part of this project called the SEDHI Diversity Project, which was a documentary theater piece. We went around, interviewed people at Muhlenberg about like issues of diversity, multiculturalism, race, gender, sexuality, disability, etc.
Yeah.
And that sort of inspired me and like radicalized me into like a politicized person who was still interested in performance. So when it was time to figure out what to do next, I applied to a program called Performance as Public Practice at the University of Texas at Austin, which was really interested in theater for social change.
Okay.
And I got my master's there, where I did a thesis on radical self-care through performance for queer people of color.
What led you from UT Austin then to NYU?
NYU was the university and the program that started performance studies as a field.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people there who specialized in thinking about queerness and thinking about race in performance especially. And I have a lot of family in the area, in the tri-state area. So I came here knowing that the program would be great for my interests and knowing that I would be close to the people I loved.
There you go. Good fit.
But what led you to discover the movement, and then how did you get involved with it?
Yeah, I think I was radicalized and politicized at Muhlenberg.
Okay.
So I started to become confrontational against issues that I didn't like. And then when I moved to Austin, I was starting fresh. I was meeting new people.
Did you love Austin?
I loved Austin.
Yeah.
I just bought this. And I was starting fresh and meeting new people, and the people who I really connected with were other queer people, other people of color, trans folks, disabled folks.
Okay.
And I learned a lot by being in community with them and like hearing about what was difficult for them, what hurt them, what gave them joy, and realized that a lot of that resonated for me and expanded my sense of myself and what I needed and what I wanted and what I loved. And that came with a kind of politics that was about protecting that joy, and that was about sort of nurturing the ways we could defend ourselves against what was coming at us.
What effect or what role would you say the movement has had in terms of race relations within America?
Yeah, I think one of the things that movements like Black Lives Matter and the movement that we see ongoing at like Standing Rock is really letting folks know that the United States was founded on and sort of is essentially based in, like legacies over a long period of time of slavery and indigenous genocide.
Right.
The United States cannot exist, actually, without anti-Black racism and without violent oppression of Native population. Tuning into that has been really important and has really affected both how people like me and maybe people like y'all do politics and how people like Donald Trump do politics. Because they realize what they're up against and what they're threatened by.
Right.
And want to squash it.
Are there specific resources, or maybe a few, that people could get involved with to kind of take ownership of their responsibility and be an active member in that community?
Yeah, I mean, if you are in a workplace that has a union, get involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a collective of people trying to combat the ways that like queer and trans people of color are caught up in prison systems and criminalized.
Mm-hmm.
And that collective is called F2L, and they could always use more money.
Okay.
So one way to plug in, I think especially as white folks and even as Asian folks with proximity to whiteness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sort of power and privilege and wealth and all of that stuff, is not just to individually donate, but to actually cultivate a network of your people, right? Here's 200 people that we know that we could ask for money for this GoFundMe page.
How would you say the marginalization of racial minorities intersects with that of other communities? So people with disabilities or people with different sexual orientations.
Another thing that needs to be radical is to never forget that all of these struggles and all of these identities are inextricable, right? So there's like never a moment at which I experience myself as being queer without also experiencing myself as being a man, without also experiencing myself as being Asian American. And we could take like a case study like marriage, for instance, right? So obviously straight people have always been allowed to get married. Gays and lesbians have struggled for that right and have achieved it at this point. But we can also think about the ways that marriage has affected immigrants. One of the things that marriage is it defines who gets to be considered a citizen and how.
Yeah.
So like marriage allows you citizenship if you can access it. If you're undocumented and you can't access marriage, you can't access that kind of heteronormativity, you don't get to be a citizen.
Yeah, what words of advice would you give to people who maybe feel threatened by the divisive rhetoric used in this past campaign?
That like a lot of the advice and a lot of the sentiment is that love trumps hate. And I think that's too simple. Love is both a feeling and a doing. And a lot of people forget about the doing part of it. Like being in a relationship with somebody and you say I love you and they say I love you and then you say back to them, this thing that you're doing is harming me or this thing that you're not doing is causing me harm. And they say, I don't care, or they sort of tune you out, then I don't really personally experience that as love.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So it's about action, and that action needs to take the form of organizing, right? So getting our communities together, actually like redistributing resources, actually plugging into the issues that you care about, researching those organizations and showing up at their door, calling your representatives, things like that. Really concrete actions that specifically target systems of oppression.
And with that, folks,
Yeah, thank you so much, James.
Yeah, thank you.
a lot of heavy lifting done by James in this video, and
Yeah.
We're very grateful to have you here.
Yeah,
and
thank
we do hope to obviously have a recurring video series in this realm. Maybe we'll have others to follow. So thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah,
we'll see,
we
folks.
will see you next week.
An injury to one is an injury to all, and we have to act with this.
And I rise up.